Hi everybody, welcome to chapter 11 in our Nordhaus text. This is our soiree into adaptive leadership, which is the only new chapter in the textbook. I think adaptive leadership is a big idea and it's very pertinent for our school system today. I agree with the fact that we're considering this and we're using it in our system. I think it's good, and I think that if we address it and accept it, we're going to understand really where it stands. It's more and more important, and it's new content. It's very pertinent for schools, and if you do have an older edition of the textbook, please know that the adaptive leadership part, this could benefit you, and this is something that you may want to consider and you may want to use on your final project. So adaptive leadership is it's defined using the word adapt. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's this idea that how do you encourage people to adapt and to deal with different problems and different challenges and different changes that occur. The leader makes the adaptations based on the work and the capabilities of the followers and also the culture of the organization as well. So when we're talking about this model, this is one of the big takeaway messages from it. So it comes from 4 different viewpoints. All of my work comes out of systems. Everything that I do, everything that I write, I've never written about biological leadership, service orientation, or psychotherapy. I'm a systems guy, so I kind of take that viewpoint, and I really do subscribe to adaptive leadership. I think it is a correct model. I think it's the right model, and I think it's important to kind of see how the model's structured and understand it better. The systems problem is important because every challenge that somebody faces, it's faced because of the way that a system is structured and the way that the system's organized, or because of the people that are in the system. So when somebody new comes in, the system itself changes. And if you know that, then you are aware that you're going to have to adapt and you're going to have to make changes to these models where necessary. Biological perspectives of it, it's that people evolve as they gain experience and they grow over time, and some thrive in certain circumstances and they may not in others. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory as well. Service orientation, this is basically when you're able to look at problems and find possible solutions, and adapt is needed based on the service that you have to perform. I can't lie, I believe in this perspective as well. Maybe not as much as systems, but you do have to make changes based on the roles and the tasks that are put forward, and especially in a profession like education, where we're really dealing with personnel more than anything else, and that's a big component and takeaway from this. And of course we have the psychotherapy perspective of this, which basically says that people are more likely to do well if they face difficult decisions directly. They're front on and they know how to handle them and they know what that looks like. They have to learn how to resolve conflicts and learn new attitudes in behaviors when it comes to things. So there's a new view on adaptive leadership. It's worth looking at if this is one that you're going to consider for your final paper and your final project. I think everything about this is important in the context of leadership development, but there are challenges, changes, that you need to keep in mind, and they're all important in the context of what leadership development is. So the technical ones are the ones that are clearly defined, and we've talked about kind of this notion of technical leadership much earlier in the class. So I think that's a big idea as well. The leader has the authority to resolve the problem, and if the problem does get resolved if the leader does right. And that creates kind of this, situational approach and the technical challenge to leadership. When it becomes technical and adaptive is when, it's when it switches from a model that was adaptive to a technical model. And I think this is funny, but look at the fact that, if you've taken time off from this institution, we've had this class offered by HISU, we've had it offered by EDLE, we've had it offered in the curriculum department, there's an AVED 5813 as well. So you've had different perspectives on leadership theory and what this is supposed to look like, and I think that's important, and I think that's a big idea. And it does require actual work and changes to kind of adjust to what that looks like. Adaptive changes are problems that are not easy to identify. If my easiest example of this is when a student needs more support, and I know they need more support, and you know they need more support, but there isn't an IEP that's in place that's going to give them the support they need. You have to adapt to it. You have to work together to find solutions to better those teachers. You could also have teachers that perform well in one content area, but absolutely not in another, and that can create a major difficulty as well. So, what are the 6 leader behaviors of adaptive leadership? Number 1, get on the balcony. Number 2, identify the adaptive challenge. Number 3, regulate distress. Number 4, maintain discipline attention. Number 5, give the work back to people. And number 6, protect leadership voices from below. As we normally do, I will talk about each one of these. So, getting on the balcony really means that you take time and you step away from the problem and you look at the big picture. How can this situation be solved? What do I need to do? And what does solving it look like? Once again, too, this is kind of my, advice. When you seek advisors and you find people that can help you, make sure those are people that aren't affiliated with the organization. The more that you can step away from the organization and get help and support outside of it, that's going to be what serves you the best. Identify the challenge, understand why it's adaptive. If there's a disconnect or if the employee isn't being compliant, that can be an issue. That can be a problem as well, because if they don't understand that there's a problem, then you're solving it before there's been a problem that somebody doesn't understand. So understand what the challenge is, ways that you can work, and ways that you can solve it that really can benefit everybody. All people want consistency. That's what they want. But when change happens, people react differently, and it's one of the reasons why I always suggest Who Moved My Cheese as a potential business book, and one that you can possibly use for your final project and for your business project in this class. If when things happen, people are going to have a different form of distress, try to regulate it as best as you possibly can. And I think it goes without saying that when we talk about this in education, teacher evaluation is the hot button issue that everybody has an issue with and everybody has a problem with. So at least knowing that and in being upfront about it, that's going to create a better situation for most. You have to encourage people to focus on the tough work, and they have to do that. You really need to do that with your assistant principals because you're doing 2 tasks with your assistant principals. Number 1, you're helping them reduce the load that you have on you. And number 2, you should be thinking in forms of succession planning and preparing them for the next steps, whatever they may be. Don't give them avoidance behaviors. Have them complete their work and make sure that they know what work completion looks like and what it's supposed to be. When you can give your work back to the people and let them take leadership roles, you should do that. As the leader of your building, as a building principal, why do you have to be involved in all committees? If you have teachers that have the capability and capacity to lead and manage change, give them autonomy. Teachers can give autonomy to their students as well, because it can get them a leadership capabilities as well. So I strongly encourage that too. Protect the people that are below you. Don't forget what the staff has to say and the students have to say. Education, higher education, honestly, most professions, it's a hierarchical system, right? Even if you're new, if you're new in your position, you're a new teacher, you're a new principal, your voice needs to be heard and you need to be respected and it needs to be protected. Don't lose sight of this as you are an educational leader. So, one of the key things that you have to do is find a way to focus on how people talk to each other and what happens between the leaders and the followers and how the followers adapt and how the leaders manage it. Principals have to adapt to district level changes, but they also have to help the building level adapt as well. And the principal just kind of has to roll with it a lot of the times, and they have to be the one that disseminates information, even if it's impacting them and even if it's something they disagree with. So, why do we like this and why is this an approach we talk about? Well, it's very process-oriented. It's centered around followers, but in the case of this class, it's centered around on the work that teachers do. Values do conflict sometimes. It's practical. It's easy to talk about ways that you adapt situations or you adapt approaches. And if you do it correctly, it should create safety in a safe space where people feel comfortable talking about issues and problems. There's very little research on this. It doesn't exist much. It's a great idea for a dissertation if you want to do it. There needs to be refinement on the model, but as I keep saying, this is difficult to jump in and do this approach because there isn't much on it. It's very wide-ranging and abstract because it's not going to be technical. If you're adapting to people, you have to know that everybody's different and everybody's an individual, so you really can't measure it. There's not a morality dimension in place yet. I think that will change as the research continues to grow in this field. So I think it's good. I think it's important because teachers adapt the most in schools and they don't want to adapt. And as a principal, one of your jobs and one of your goals is to make your teaching staff feel warm and fuzzy. And building level administrators, it's just another thing that's thrown on them. So this is brand new. It's something that we've just started covering in this class. I'm sure in future years they're going to expand upon this more, but this is a brief introduction to this theory and one that may help you. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.